Patsy Cline's journey from a self-taught musician to an iconic figure in country and mainstream music is nothing short of extraordinary. But at the peak of her career, she started foreshadowing her own death, and a few months later, her intuitions became a reality. She was hale and hearty, and just in her 30s when she met her doom. But the question is, how was she able to predict her own death? Does her getting sexually abused by her father contribute to her early demise? And what was the secret behind her posthumous success? Let's find out in this video, while also showing you some of her rare photos. Virginia Patterson. Hensley was born in Winchester, Virginia on September 8, 1932. Her mother was only 16 years old at the time of her birth, and her father already had 2 children from another marriage living in a foster home. Needless to say, the family wasn't well off financially. In her childhood, the family relocated often, so Cline's father, a blacksmith, could find work. When the family could not make ends meet, Cline would do odd jobs, such as plucking and cutting chickens on a poultry farm to gather some money. But laborious work may have been the least of problems in young Cline's life. Later in her years, Cline confided with her friend Loretta Lynn about her traumatic childhood experiences. Among these experiences was one that Cline told Loretta to take to her grave. It would appear that Cline was a victim of sexual abuse by none other than her father, a memory so haunting that it would send chills down her spine whenever she thought about it later in life. At the age of 13, Cline also developed a terrible throat infection. She recalled that her heart stopped beating, and she was put in an oxygen tent. But while Cline may have felt like she was at death's door, this was, in fact, a blessing in disguise. After recovery, Cline noticed something strange with her voice. Her voice was more booming now, somewhat similar to another great singer of the time, Kate Smith. Realizing the potential of her voice, Cline developed an interest in singing. She started performing in the local Baptist choir, duetted with her mother at church social events, and also taught herself to play the piano. Just a year later, she auditioned for the local radio station, and the interviewer, who was impressed by her voice and guts to perform at such a young age, gave her the job. But while Cline was picking on this new endeavor, her parents' marriage was falling apart, and in 1947, her father deserted the family. The financial situation was already dire, and after the father's departure, Cline had to drop out of high school to work at a drugstore. By the early 1950s, Cline continued performing around her local area. In 1952, she auditioned for local country bandleader, namely Bill Peer. Peer found her promising, and Cline began working regularly as a member of Bill Peer's Melody Boys and Girls. She also reportedly had an affair with Bill Peer, but the relationship was never made public, and Bill remained married to his wife. That said, during one of the tours with Melody Boys and Girls, she met a man named Gerald Cline. Gerald was a slightly older man who owned a construction company and was well off. On the other hand, while Patsy Cline's financial situation had improved substantially, she still saw potential stability in marrying Gerald. The couple, however, didn't quite connect, and although Gerald genuinely loved Cline, he alone couldn't salvage the marriage. They eventually divorced each other in 1957. In 1954, Cline signed a 2-year contract with 4 Star Records, which meant that her career was finally taking shape. It seemed like a straight road to success. However, this time, Cline would find herself trapped by corporate greed. The contract allowed the record label to receive most of the money from the songs Cline recorded. Beyond that, she was only allowed to record songs with a list of their own writers, hence limiting her artistic freedom. Anyhow, Cline's first single was A Church, a Courtroom, Then Goodbye, which was not successful in the least. Cline would continue to record singles with 4 Star Records, but with her limited artistic freedom and expression. Her songs were lackluster and soulless compared to her later singles. Although Cline's music was still not successful or critically acclaimed, she continued to perform regionally. What she needed, however, was proper exposure that would finally unveil her talents to the world, and she ended up getting that opportunity. In 1956, Cline received a call to perform on a talent scout show on CBS, a show she had auditioned for several months earlier. According to the rules of the show, the talent scout could not be a family member. However, since no one was available to play this role, Cline's mother lied and acted as her scout for the show. Later, Patsy Cline's daughter, Julie Fudge, would recall this funny incident. That night, Cline performed her single Walkin' After Midnight and won the contest. The single in question hadn't been released yet, but considering an insurgence in Cline's popularity and the public's intense demand for the release of this song, the record label rush released the song, making the song an instant hit. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Country and Western Sides chart. Also, unlike Cline's previous records, the single was also critically acclaimed and is still considered one of country's classics. On the personal aspect of her life, Cline felt that she had finally found true love. During one of her local performances, she met a man named Charlie Dick. Both of them related to each other on a personal level. They were both young, hard-working, passionate musicians who had loving mothers but no fathers and had an overall traumatic childhood. In 1957, Cline married Charlie and gave birth to their first daughter, Julie. Anyhow, after the success of Walkin' After Midnight, Cline's follow-up singles were still failures. This was primarily due to the exploitative nature of the contract. Cline was becoming a one-hit wonder, and she feared that she would never reach the same height with another single. Thankfully, though, this was not the end of her career, and all she needed was a new beginning. In 1960, she moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and became a member of the Grand Ole Opry, a country music radio that she always dreamt of joining. Furthermore, after the culmination of her contract with 4-Star Records, she signed a deal with Decca Records that gave her more leeway and artistic freedom. Her first release under Decca Records didn't pick up initially, but in a couple of months, it topped the country chart and peaked at number 12 in the Billboard Pop chart. This was it. Cline had finally hit the jackpot, and her journey here onwards was a smooth sail to victory. But that was until she was involved in a severe car accident. At 29 years of age, Cline and her brother were almost killed in a head-on car collision. She miraculously survived the incident, but she had severe scarring, chronic pain, and had to spend a month at the hospital to recuperate. At this point, it would have made sense for her to retire from her albeit short but successful career. A life-threatening event is, after all, a life-threatening event. And while one might recover from the injuries in a few months, it takes years to recover from the trauma. However, to everyone's surprise, Cline returned back after just 6 weeks. Cline came back stronger than ever. She released a single called Crazy, which topped the country charts at number 2. The song has since been considered a country music standard and has garnered wide critical acclaim. After the single, she released her second studio album, Patsy Cline Showcase, which was also a commercial success. Patsy Cline's distinctive vocal style, marked by dramatic volume control, stretched notes, emotional nuances, and unique phrasing, revitalized classic country songs like San Antonio Rose, Blue Moon of Kentucky, and Half as Much. Her voice matured with timeless qualities, appealing to successive generations. In 1961, Cline performed at Carnegie Hall, receiving positive reviews despite a snide comment from a columnist. She won industry awards and recorded hits like She's Got You. Financial stability allowed her to purchase her dream home. A movie project fell through and she worked in Las Vegas, making history as the first female country artist to headline there. Later, her friends, June Carter and Loretta Lynn, would reveal that during this period, Cline would have premonitions of her own death and didn't expect to live much longer. Her friends shrugged it off because she was a healthy woman in her 30s who had decades worth of life ahead of her. Little did they know that death doesn't discriminate. On March 5th, 1963, Patsy Cline's flight crashed on an evening of heavy weather. Forensic examination concluded that everyone aboard was killed instantly. Her body was brought home for memorial service, and thousands of people chimed in to pay respects to this legendary singer. Her life may have been short, but her legacy lives on. From posthumous records to documentaries to stories, this woman was able to inspire millions of people in just a few years. Her grave is marked with a bronze plaque that reads, "Death cannot kill what never dies, love." A fitting statement indeed. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.